OOCS, Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 306. The Bounty Hunters. Plasma and laser attacks do nothing to the serpents, but kinetic rounds crash into them. Nowhere near hard enough, though. The sheer mass difference should splatter the twisted albino snakes, but instead it only kills them one at a time. Thankfully, the Hat and Mr. T both have weapons with huge ammo stores, a fully automatic mode, and they can get to near Olympian speeds running and gunning with it. The tide is unrelenting as the copy dawed her. Whatever the hell of Eva Grace screams at them in fury. Then things abruptly stop as the massive wall of writhing, spiked snakes with super hard scales run into the issue that they're a massive wall of hard points that are digging into everything. The stupid things have wedged themselves into a wall. The ranting switches to a code language that only Pookie can understand, mostly because he had already learned the swears in Cindy's native tongue, and the girl is stringing them together in every manner imaginable. Is she having a seizure? Dong asks. She's questioning the bathing habits and sexual preferences of our families going back to the 5th generation, and she's moving to the 6th. Pookie remarks as he scans the area and raises up his rifle to shoot a camera before rethinking. Come on, Snakeway's blocked and we need information. Copy that. They start moving away from the struggling mass of serpents and down the hallway. So how do you think she sees us? If the cameras are not using Axiom, then the image they'll read will have us in them regardless of the Axiom level of who's looking, Pookie remarks before flipping off a camera with his right armored hand. The swearing shifts. Yep, Axiomless cameras. Clever. Keep moving. How did she know to check for something hidden from Axiom use? This couldn't have been planned. The ghost armor. The Hat begins to wonder before they reach a door and form up around it. It's locked, but a quick introduction to the pummeler is a more or less universal key. The chunks of doorway bounce off several containment tubes surrounded by force fields and heavily reinforced. Inside is a lidrous man with the skin off and too many organs for a lidrous. There is a computer terminal just in front of it and a forest of different tools to either side, ready to perform some form of experiment on the creature at any moment. Setting up link now. Bike, do you have this? No. Password protection. She wasn't expecting this one to be hacked, Bike states. Downloading onto a secluded hard drive. Download complete. Safely extracting. That thing is partially human. That's the extra organs. It's a lidrous human hybrid. Pookie, it's you. That thing is made from you. Where did she get the sample? Pookie growls out. I don't know, but it's not in here. I've got more data to go through, but this thing is far from ready to go out. Its mind is empty. Fine. Just make sure the next horrible surprise isn't during a firefight. Pookie orders. Copy that. I've got our crew getting back to the ship, and I've already got our medical professionals looking at things. To say nothing of the backup I'm calling in. When you want that place gone, we're going to have a straight shot to bedrock. Good man, Pookie states. Moving to coordinates, bombardment laser primed and ready. Jacob calls out over the comm as he makes the bloody heron dance under his command. Then one of his screens starts spitting out information and showing an outline. Chain breaker, my scanners are picking up the general shape of the superstructure. We may have a ship. I repeat, enemy base may be a ship. Copy that, Heron. Keep us updated. Reinforcements are moving into position to try and cordon off the enemy vessel. There is a high likelihood of hostages on board along with our team. The next monster to show up looked like someone looked at an armadillo and decided that it needed lots and lots of acidic white paint. Is white just her thing? Dong asks curiously as he manages to get the creature right in the eye with a rifle shot as it tries to peek at them past its armor. It thrashes and spreads a caustic white slime in all directions. Still, it couldn't see us. No, but it knew where to stop to get in our way, Pookie answers. So she has enough control of the damn thing to guide them exactly and is using them to try and pen us in. Down or up, boss? The Hat asks. Down. Pookie answers and the Hat chuckles as he kicks the hull cutter on his rifle into its maximum burn setting. 5 seconds later, there is a large circle almsot completely cut out of the floor, and everyone takes a step back and aims their weapons down before the man kicks the hole in. Nothing. An optic camera is lowered to check, and it's a storage room full of chemicals and a massive pallet labeled nutrient paste. They all hop in and quickly find the door out. The swearing over the speakers suddenly shifts into yet another language. Yep, those chemicals are the what's what for what you need to clone just about anything. Don't worry too much about checking your fire in there. None of it's flammable or explosive, but it's good stuff to have around for replacing limbs. Bike informs them. Copy that, Pukey says. I've also just received some good news. That being? The Lidrus human hybrid is only made in your image. No actual sample was used. It is of human genealogy and been modified to resemble you more, but the sample was actually off of a copy of engineer Reginald Pike. He's posted on Centrus, and the sample was stolen when he had to stay in a civilian hospital during our first week of the Dauntless setting down there. I wonder how he'll take that, Dong muses. Dunno, it's going to be a hell of a conversation, though. Bike notes. From the looks of things, she was planning to start cybernetically augmenting the poor thing, but hasn't bothered to start with mental imprints, so even if it wakes up and has freshly downloaded combat skills, it's going to be rusty at best. Well, hopefully we won't have to, Pukey says, as everyone forms up around him at the door. A big punch later, and they shift into the hallway with their guns pointed in either direction. Contact, the hat says as something tries coming out of a room 10 meters distance from themselves, and it flops around. Numerous white-feathered wings with gigantic eyes on them that weep a dark red mucus that's too bright to be actual blood. It staggers out and lets out a gurgled scream as it tries to get its balance. Then the eyes suddenly focus at them and they all dive back into the storage room as the air opens wide with laser blasts that leave behind explosions of plasma as they streak through the air. The sheer heat washes over them all without harm, but it superheats the numerous contained fluids, and they shatter out of their containers to sluice and mix into a technically very nutritious, but very disgusting, bile. The continuing bombardment from the screaming wing-eyed monster flash vaporizes more and more fluids, until the area is coated in a thick gray steam that blocks sight. The thing's scream changes and shifts as if it were curious or cautious. The swearing shifts. And now she's hurling abuse at her pet monster. Apparently, it's called the Atrap, which is pretentious as fuck. Pukey mutters as he slips to the edge of the door and uses his mechanical eye's ability to pick out further detail than his normal one, to pick out where the central body of the monster is. Then he lets out a short burst of bullets. The thing stops screaming and falls to the ground. So what's an A-trap? Kobe legend, sort of. There's a hunting bird that would scare the hell out of them when they were hunting and steal prey, too. So legends started of giant A-traps that would hunt cobes instead. Not even the bones of one were ever found, but the actual bird is fierce enough and fast enough to leave scars if you piss it off, and they're smart enough to be petty. So a hawk with magpie brains? And a bad attitude, yes. According to legend, to be seen by one was certain death, Pukey says as they cover the hallway and slowly approach the dropped creature. Pukey's burst of bullets had caught it in the collarbone, neck and upper chest. It's very dead, and looks very much like a biblically accurate angel. Well, this is disturbing, Mr. T notes as he sees just how young the face of the creature is. It's like a child in costume more than a monster. Keep moving. The real monster is the one that sicked it on us. The clopping of hooves is rushing at them out of seemingly nowhere, and they ready themselves. But what comes at them is more blindly stumbling than direct threat. It's a fully grown and fully naked Morega, albino white like everything else here, with skin on, but there are bulges across her naked body. Things are moving around inside her. Her mouth hangs open and she pants, wild-eyed and unseeing as something else is looking out from inside her mouth as she stumbles through the group, and they part to let her pass, completely unaware of their presence. The actual fuck? The hat asks. Were those spiders? Mr. T demands. We are going to have a monster of a mission report after this, Pukey mutters. Move, men. And they didn't see us, so we keep going and try and make some sense of the madness. I'm going to be double-checking my food for at least a week after seeing that. Dong notes. Wait, did the spider in her mouth have... Focus, Pukey says. We're moving. Go figure that the biggest damage we take is entirely psychological. Bike mutters as he rubs his eyes high up on the chainbreaker. I suppose when the bigger threat is disturbing images, it doesn't matter if you're up there or down here. The hat says with amusement in his voice. Do I have to turn this pain train around? Pukey asks. No, sir, everyone answers. Pukey huffs in clear amusement, and he places a teleportation tag onto the thing he killed, and then launches another at the infested thing. Both vanish. Look there, see that? The robot piloted by Dr. Grace states. That's a distinctive degeneration of the genome, common with rushed bioprints. It's not guaranteed, but I'm willing to stake my master's thesis on this clone being no less than 6 days of age. But that was before we came here, Cindy states. Correct. It appears you have once again stumbled upon something my wretched daughter did. It appears the weight of my sins is ever growing. You are not responsible for what others do, Cindy chides him. The robot he's piloting looks to her and sighs furtively. Am I not the creator of this? Am I not the one who ensured that she would emerge female despite having my mind and memories? Ensuring body dysphoria? Such mental strain coupling with my knowledge has led to horror twice now, Dr. Grace says in horror. And yet you went through worse horrors, altered your body massively, and took on unasked for responsibilities without complaint. Whatever caused your clone to snap, it is not within you, Dr. Grace. Cindy states and Dr. Grace nods. Yes, thank you. Still, here and here. These parts of the genetic structure allow Nagasha to accept implants more readily. They're clearly artificially activated. If we scan deeply, we should find some form of beacon or other type of implant within her anatomy. Hey, we've got some new images you two might want to take a look at. Bike suddenly calls over the speaker. Zui, what have they found? Dr. Grace asks. We have 2 freshly tagged targets, both in stasis and both disturbing. One dead and the other alive. Disturbing how? One looked like it wept blood, and the other seems to be infested by large spiders. I beg your pardon. Dr. Grace, do you have any idea what's going on? Bike asks. I did have a terrible nightmare as a young Kobe. I had overindulged in intoxicants after receiving my credentials as a scientist and awoke in near-paralyzed horror from the images I saw. Perhaps that had something to do with it? The nightmares of a very skilled and intelligent cloner? Dear God. Yes, a sentient swarm of symbiotic spiders is far from pleasant to consider. Ivan mutters in horror. Okay, I need a list of your most depraved nightmares, just in case the boys start running into them. Bike states. Oh dear, would you care for the recent ones as well? They've gotten interesting since the last time we were here on Albrecht. OOCS into a wider galaxy, Part 307. The Bounty Hunters. So what prompted nightmares like this, Dr. Grace? Pukey asks as he slips into the next room and leads his men in. Jackpot. It's filled with a series of crystal memory servers, and Dong rushes in as they're covering him. He hooks up a link. All right, this is established and holy shit. There's a lot in here and no way of telling if it's good or bad. This is going to take a bit to download. Bike reports. Ballpark it. 10 minutes, 20 max. Unacceptable. We can't just sit down and wait for them to come to us. We need to move before she gets her head on straight and floods us in snakes or screaming maggots. Pukey retorts. It's connected to a sealed server. Just leave it, sir. Everyone has one in their kit. We can lose it. Bike reassures him. Copy that, all right, team? Clear the room and keep moving. We cannot allow ourselves to be cornered in this mad scientist's lair. Pukey orders, but Mr. T suddenly starts tapping a wall. Is something wrong, soldier? There's a strange sensation here, sir. In the axiom, he says banging the wall and getting a hollow echo back. I didn't see a doorway in the hallway that would lead into something right next door, sir. Then make one. The enemy is not permitted secrets. Pukey orders and a hole cutter activates and the wall gets carved into. There is an enormous guttural, gurgling scream as some unseen horror takes offense to their actions. The area rocks somewhat, and there is a pause. I didn't say stop, soldier. The door is fully carved, but for the last sliver. and both Mr. T and the Hat stand to the side as Pukey retrieves a massive plasma cannon from an expanded pouch and starts charging it as Dong watches their rear. Unknowns on approach, steam too thick for clear visual. Dong reports, as the cannon starts glowing, line a nuclear reactor. Mr. T and the Hat shift further to the side to give Pukey more space as he adjusts the end of the barrel to focus the plasma burst into a far more concentrated beam. Then he fires, and the chunk of carved wall provides as much resistance as a stick of butter in a blast furnace. The thing that screamed earlier lets out a wail that suggests it has more mouths than standard, and the entire area shakes. "And they're converging on us, sir. Permission to engage?" Dong asks. "Drop them," Pukey remarks, and there are 2 quick bursts of rifle fire, followed by a more clunky device to launch teleportation tags at the cadavers. Current targets clear, larger unknown on approach. It's filling the hallway. "She's trying to block us. Idiot! Through the hole, gents," Pukey says after firing another, considerably less powerful plasma blast into the hole he made, and then heading in, his hacker arm powering the plasma cannon beautifully. The next room over has a mostly destroyed walkway going around the outside. Pukey's plasma stream had melted a half-meter off the footpath and 3 meters of the railing before it spread and deleted half the walkway of the far wall. The room they just left has a massive muzzle try to reach into the doorway a few times, snapping and cracking its jaws before the space around it distorts, and an enormous muzzle followed by an almost slug-like body comes sliding through, and directly into a withering hail of gunfire. Its skin is so spongy that the bullets bounce off, and plasma only seems to excite it. It rushes them and pauses at the hole too small for it to fit through as the men start changing weapons. "Ground team, can you hear me?" Litha suddenly asks over their comms. "Can and are beautiful. Is something wrong?" Pukey asks before chuckling. If he has to sing one of his children to sleep while he's in the middle of a pitched fight, then that's another off the bucket list. "Quite the opposite. I've been going through the files and I found this creature's profile. It's being controlled by a device implanted in the back of its mouth. If it can be damaged or destroyed, then it goes out of control. You will, however, need cutting tools to reach it. Its body is too elastic and thermal resistant for standard bullets, lasers, or plasma to be any use against it. Is it sentient or sapient? Because we have other ways to kill it," Pukey asks. "Electrical or cryogenic attacks will be brutal, and no, it's no more intelligent than a guard animal." "I got this," Dong says as he withdraws one of his favorite toys from a pouch. The creature turns. By design, a caster gun cannot be made of ghost metal, nor can the shells. He loads in a pale blue and white round. "Freeze!" He fires the weapon, and the moment the shot makes contact, the creature is suddenly completely still and giving off mist. The Hat's elbow strikes it, and the creature's outermost skin shatters, and the internals start breaking apart as it starts falling to the platform. Breaking further and falling through in a rain of frozen gore. Dong twirls the gun and mimes blowing smoke out of the barrel before ejecting the shell and tucking away the caster gun in a position so that he can quickly load another into it. "I actually forgot you incorporated that into your kit," Pukey notes as he waves the taser prongs from his arm a bit to let Dong know what the backup plan was. "Too cool not to have, sir. All right, chill it with the ice puns. Check this chamber. Bigger things are usually given way too much importance," Pukey orders. "Hello, what have we here?" The Hat notes as a piece of the frozen creature refuses to crumple through the grating of the walkway and reveals itself to be a device with numerous spikes along its length that have a slight charge visibly running through them to spark near the end. "That's the control device. It was directly implanted into the creature's central nervous system," Litha answers. "Essentially, that's what a direct neural tap looks like, just far bigger and far, far more brutal. There are no safeties in that model, and it wouldn't be acceptable to sell on the market for even dangerous guard animals. It's a custom hack job made by either a truly overindulging sadist or a complete sociopath without even a vocabulary understanding of mercy. So this one is going in the mercy killing file. Got it," Dong notes. "It's a disgusting example of mass cloning for the creation of guard beasts. The absolute cad born of the most diseased dredges of my own mind is just," Dr. Gray says into the call. "What's up, Doc?" Pukey asked with a grin. "Do you think you're up for provoking whatever version of that crazy witch this is? Oh, you have speakers on stealth armor? It seems counterproductive. In ordinary circumstances, the stealth is almost too good, and while someone can understand the feel of a rifle and a threat, just the feel of a rifle will confuse more often. So yes, speakers are necessary," Pukey answers. "I see. Can you put me on, please? I'm willing to speak to her. Although I must confess, if she is truly like the first Iva, then this will not end well. She has the sort of superficial charisma that was able to get me to drop my guard, even as I was watching her for potential instability. We're not going to stop until we either have to retreat or have her in a stasis field. You're either going to provoke her into making mistakes or confuse her into making mistakes. I see no downsides." Pukey states, and there's a slight pause. "All right, put me on." Dr. Gray states, and Pukey activates a speaker connected to his armor and holds it up. "You're up, Doc," Pukey says. "Attention, Eva. This is your progenitor. That is correct. I, Ivan Grace, and free and mobile. I am also working with these gentlemen. Surrender, and I will use my influence to secure you the most favorable sentence possible. I do not recommend fighting these men. They were absurdly competent before they started truly using Axiom or developed their current technologies. At this point, the only force that is more effective at killing would be the force that destroyed your original. Eva Grace died at the hand of a hollow daughter. Do not repeat her mistakes and surrender. I do not wish to see another Cobb, much less one of my own lineage, reduced to a desiccated husk." There is no response at first. "I know those things. I don't care. I was born to kill, and kill I will. You came back too early. The experiment was still underway, but you found my puppet. We will meet again." Then the entire structure shakes. "Enemy structure shifting. It's a ship," Jacob calls out. "Heron in pursuit, aiming for engines." His ship wasn't originally a war vessel. He had tuned it to move fast and blend in with transports the galaxy over. He could lose it in any transport hub, if not for the decorations on the side, and that was something that needed another ship to basically be on top of his own to be seen. The weapons, including the massive bombardment laser, had all been incorporated into his ship just so as not to change the profile, and when powered down, registered as a slightly more energetic part of the ship than normal. The weapons were on, and he was already directly overhead the idiot when they launched out. He had no idea who was trying to pull a runner, but he had no warning about this, which meant it had to be a hostile. Of course, things started to go wrong right away. His systems start fluctuating as his antivirus programs are instantly attacked the moment his ship automatically tries to ID the moving vessel. Viruses in the IFM. That's the sort of thing that gets someone reduced to slag on sight. Unfortunately for them, he's a Valran, born to fly. Without passengers, he already had the inertial dampeners down low to feel the wind over his hull. He understood the angles of his cameras and how his lasers play with them. He powers up his weapons and takes a breath to get the timing and calculations just right. The shot is technically blind, technically a random shot that he hoped would hit, but in truth, he knows it will hit. The pulse laser gouges a trench into the escaping craft as it blasts past the bloody Heron. All ships in and around Albrith, guard your systems. An enemy vessel is using a viral IFF profile. I cannot pursue. My ship is barely flying. Jacob reports over his own communicator set to all local. Literally everyone he's met in system has heard that. Then they all hear the clunk as a piece of the escaping vessel lands on his ship harmlessly but loudly. All ships in and around Albrith, guard your systems. An enemy vessel is using a viral IFF profile. I cannot pursue. My ship is barely flying. The message calls out and everyone looks to Captain Rangi. Hive carriers 1 through 4. Do you read me? Captain Rangi activates the comm. Yes, sir. We're going through a systems check. We're ready for all that we're ever going to be launched. Ready and eager. Do we have something? Here and hot to go. An enemy ship is blasting away from Albrith with all speed. They will be moving within 5,000 kilometers of our current position shortly. Its IFF signal carries a virus, and I want it powerless and helpless as it tumbles through space, but intact. Do you understand me? Sir, yes, sir. The eagerness is so thick it can be felt. Launch hive carriers, Captain Rangi orders, eager himself. 4 long ships launch from the Inevitable, each crewed by a total of 3 men, 1 pilot, 2 drone commanders, and the commanders do double duty as engineers. The ships are long and thin, but have so many drones latched onto the central structure and each other that they balloon outwards like an open pine cone. Each scale a fully functional combat drone with a ship-grade laser cannon with underslung hull cutter to allow near-literal surgical strikes on enemy craft. Each ship carries a loadout of 100 drones and requires assistance from the nearby Inevitable or RAM to restock, but at short ranges where resupply is guaranteed. The escape ship enters an entire forest of laser beams and competitive cutting. OOCS into a wider galaxy, Part 308. The Bounty Hunters. The concentrated efforts of 10 drones landing onto the communication node of the small, fast, and durable ship reduces its durability, much the same way that one of its engines being torn out by Captain Schrecktalon's pulse laser had slowed its ability to accelerate and maneuver. Still, the outer hull is reinforced, so a full 8 of the drones are rapidly heating and damaging the outer hull as the dedicated cutters carved through the weakened armor to carve out and disrupt the viral IFF signal. But there aren't just 10 drones. There are hundreds, and when all 4 hive carriers unload their entire payload, 1,000. The escape craft is reinforced to the nines and with massively overpowered engines. It's the answer for when you need to GTFO, but escaping into the equivalent of a swarm of angry Asian murder hornets is not wise. The only gaps in the immense and shifting bombardment of laser attacks are where drones are landing on the ship and carving into the hull, slowly ripping things open as the few weapons on the tiny shuttle manages to drop a few, but nowhere near enough, drones. A second engine of 5 is torn away, and there's a slight balance. But the pilot inside had clearly been compensating for things already, and a balance returning to the ship means their compensations are now off balance. The ship shifts as the ship suddenly veers to the side due to overcompensation, and then corrects itself quickly. Inside, the pilot of the ship is swearing up and down as everything is going wrong. The sheer number of drones, each happily giving off their own IFF, while not taking the bait that was her own, was cluttering her analysis screen, and her equipment was being peeled away like the bitter skin of a vegetable. Everything was going wrong. The conservation efforts came too soon, and as she moved to stall them out by replacing officials to buy her time and move her projects away from things, the Inevitable had showed up and screamed more attention into the system. But that was strictly small time when the original enemies returned. The wretched vandals. They were destroying everything. Why couldn't they see that? That evolution had slowed down. People were too comfortable, too weak and witless. They needed enemies, they needed monsters to test themselves and, yes, call the chaff from the wheat. Her original hadn't had a completely correct idea. A singular cove ascended into a primal would make a powerful statement, but the whole species had to be strengthened, to say nothing of the fact that the theory had been proven. By the undaunted who harried her, even no less. One of their own had ascended as the first primal Earthani. The whole species had then followed into advancement, and if the physical and axiomatic alterations she had observed on the Jameson individual were any proof, they had potentially done so with their own species as well. Hypocrites, hypocrites all. They seek power and are praised for it. I seek power and am regarded as monstrous. She grits out to herself as the ship rocks. The drones have cut into another engine and have sliced through the central chamber. She braces herself for a moment as the null wave lances over her and works to try and get some energy into the system from the backup batteries. She was not going to fall today. Even with 1 engine and a quarter of the shuttle, she could still escape. She just needed to. The sensors come back and she curses as she wrestles with the controls. The backup controls that could work after an engine going into overload nulls the ship. But it wasn't too bad. If only she could veer away from the massive ship coming right at her and opening up a cargo bay like a gigantic yawning mouth. That's when another engine pops and she's locked out of the system again. Momentum carries the ship, and Captain Chasm's smile is sharp and predatory at having caught his prey. Shellfish in the pot, he says with a chuckle. So what do you think it is? Pookie asks, looking down at the shuddering thing. It turns out the multi-storied room is surrounding one large creature that can turn itself completely transparent. And his earlier move with the plasma cannon had scared it so badly it was basically folded in on itself about 50 times over and shuddering as vaguely wiggly air about a hand's length below the walkway. The snake, snail, alligator thing's flash-frozen corpse shattering onto it was what was giving it away. A Shoggoth? Mr. T asks, and everyone looks at him. Giant single-celled organism from the nightmares of Lovecraft. Think a slow but no central core, endless hunger and cunning intelligence on top of being a master shapeshifter. Slime monster? Maybe, Pukey remarks. Oh, that one. I think that nightmare was sourced by one of my comrades, Dr. Grace states as he watches from the body cams. Excuse me? A tradition in the academy I attended. Get massively inebriated and throw out all your most horrible ideas for everyone to hear. The drink reduces inhibition, and by letting the bad ideas leave, we're supposed to have better careers. For all the good that did me, Dr. Grace explains. Okay, and this animal is a what? The theoretical missing link between smaller and simpler gel creatures and a slobe expanded to enormous size. So we have an upright ape equivalent on a King Kong scale, Pukey notes. I'm thinking more Sasquatch, a giant slobe Sasquatch, Mr. T notes. Your references are making lovely whistling sounds as they soar overhead, Dr. Grace notes dryly. Then he chuckles. Not that I can't figure it out. So what do we do with this thing, Doc? What's your recommendation? It's injured and clearly retreating rather than lashing out. I think you have higher priorities than the creature literally huddling in a corner to get away from you, Dr. Grace states. Right, fair enough. Is there any other surprises? A few diseases that might or might not be capable of sentience. One of my clearest nightmares was about some kind of pathogen sentience being discovered. A virus that is also a person in some manner. So you're saying that a decontamination shower might be a murder from here on out? Possibly, Dr. Grace asks. Holy shit. Yeah. Okay, wow. Anything else? Trying to find the point where animals and people meet, forcing evolution and forcing things to stay in specific shapes. There's a lot of theories, but it's unknown why the general body shape of the galaxy is the way it is. No one is certain. So, trying to break the cycle is something that a lot of geneticists and cloners will at least consider in their darker moments, which seems to be the only kind of moment I've ever had mentally. You've already seen weirdness, but you might find missing links or what might be missing links in a few generations. Wonderful. Move out, men. Just check your shots. No doubt the monster maker is gone, so sending the beast after us with murderous intent is, as the laws of physics and the laws of irony seem to be in accordance from time to time, a doorway down below opens and something screams, runs into the shivering protoplasmic creature below, and starts dissolving. The fuck? Pukey asks as the creature is reduced to bones and fur in short order before the bones dissolve too. The fur is spat out. Was that a deer? With huge cans, yes, the hat states. This fucking place. The creature lets out an unholy wail as the blade meets its neck, and despite its emaciated and starved frame, it seems to thrash with unusual energy. Still, the effects are worryingly noticeable. The gas wouldn't be clearing away this swiftly if it wasn't going somewhere, which is an enormous issue. This foul substance sinks. So to what pit is it heading? Hafi deliberates these issues as he stalks through the rapidly clearing tunnel. Too small to fly in without the techniques his mother passed to him through blood and training, but he was capable of walking through it if he did it in the manner of the fruit sonner and upon his knuckles. Not the most uncomfortable method of transportation, but far from the most dignified. A few piercing calls and the shape of the caverns returns to him quickly enough to be considered instantaneous by most. But he is not most, he can tell the gap. But that matters little. He found a thinner patch of the wall that leads to another tunnel, and there was what appeared to be a gap in there. Not one he was completely certain of, but if he is correct. He tears through the wall and sends out another burst of sound, It returns to let him know his suspicions were completely correct. It is a path downwards. Before he can dive down, there is a notification, one from a familiar number. He answers. "Hello, brother. I believe I have something of yours." "I do hope you haven't hurt him," Warren says in a mild tone. "Considering he's now part of an ecological wonder, I would not even consider doing so." "What?" "Oh, the astral forest thing. Yes, I figured you would find that interesting." He is a portion of a communal entity and did not see fit to warn me? Considering just how well we get along, I would assume you'd have to go outside and check if I told you what color the sky on that world is. Not at all. I trust your intellectual prowess, your practical understanding of force, and how the galaxy operates could use some adjustment. Hafid counters. Well, regardless, I am on my way with the entire family. We are less than 70 hours away, and much of the family has joined us. I wanted to make extra certain you were warned and not going to believe this was some paranoid attack on you and attack me. Again. Oh no, the attack I knew would be arriving is here already. Incidentally, do you have a knowledge of the chemical weapon titled mustard gas? Or sulfur mustard? I am. It's a dangerous blister agent, a human weapon that they developed roughly a century ago to mass slaughter one another. A large amount of it was used to kill horrifically cloned abominations on this world in the past. It has since been replicated and used as the primary attack vector of new abominations. Can you create something to nullify it? Easily, but if you want industrial quantities, I'm going to need a great number of chemicals that I don't have with me. I will see to that. Send Mother a list of what you require. The cost is from my account. If you can, ensure that the remaining byproduct will harmlessly degrade. That's the general idea when it comes to mass poisons either way. I'll get to my mobile lab. It looks like I have something to do. Do you want to speak with Father? Our brothers or sisters? Most are here with me. I'm afraid I'm about 50 meters into the crust of Albreth and stalking toxin-filled tunnels for abominations, endlessly spewing out more sulfur mustard. I may need to cut off a conversation at short notice, Hafid remarks. That wasn't an answer. Is your son Matthew available? Hafid asked with a grin. It was odd. He truly detested how willingly weak Warren was. But the conviction he stood by his choices was laudable enough to make conversation more than bearable. It was just concerning that he was so vulnerable. Deeply concerning. I think I saw something like this in Japanese horror, Mr. T notes as the figure staggers between them all, not seeing them as it wanders on its way. The fact that it's openly flushed, panting, and playing with itself as it moves just makes it more disturbing. Please no, the hat states. No. Really, some kind of long-necked monster woman, just infinitely long necks. And the fact she stretches her every limb out on demand? Pukey asks as the thing takes a step that takes it halfway down the hallway. Its drunken, stumbling, swaying, and furiously self-pleasuring gait is just disturbing. I don't know. Could be the legend, Mr. T says with a shrug. Fascinating. That figure had traits similar to Metak wings in her limbs, despite being a clearly oversexed tret otherwise. Dr. Grace notes. I wonder if she is under the effects of a genetic splicing, surgical adjustment, or axiom mutation. I'm wondering why she was up to stretchy elbow in her lower mouth and distorting herself further. Pukey notes. Near empty mind in a fully sexually developed body. No learned self-restraint to prevent her from self-pleasuring, coupled with new nerve endings and all the sensations being new and pleasurable, can lead to early addiction. It can happen with mostly blank clones of people. It's a common issue. You normally don't need to worry too much about it. The need for food, rest, and safety generally distracts them from it eventually, and they can get busy with learning, and it stops them. And if it doesn't, a spray of cold water. How often does this happen? Enough that there's standard procedure to either load up their minds with more than just basic movement, unlike the woman that just passed you by, use axiom effects or chemicals to temporarily shut down sexual functions, or to let them develop from a pre-pubescent age. It appears Iva has chosen to allow this error to occur. She was much smarter with my granddaughters. Perhaps this iteration of Eva is more reckless. Perhaps so. I just got a signal from Captain Cassim of the Holt. They've captured here with the Inevitable's assistance, and she has a human body. Does she now? Dr. Grace asked with interest. OOCS Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 309. The Bounty Hunters. She was caught, Axiom scrambling bands around her wrists, ankles, and another around her neck. They were taking no chances with her. It was almost admirable and just a little flattering. They knew what she could do. They knew what she was capable of and were terrified she'd escape to continue. As frustrating as it made her chances of escape, it also meant they acknowledged her. Then the door to her cell opens, and through the force field and full inch of transparent metal, she sees HRHM. Too frightened to face me yourself? Need to be in a remote drone to see me? She snarls at him, and Dr. Ivan Grace says nothing as he walks up to the barrier and just looks at her. Dr. Grace is in another part of the galaxy entirely, and remote piloting a full-body prosthetic to aid us in dealing with your mess. A speaker says overhead. Of course he is. Cowards run from their problems. Cowards refuse to take the necessary steps to a better future. Cowards acquire all the knowledge and skill to make the galaxy a better place and do nothing with it, she spits out. Dr. Grace says nothing. He merely watches her with his hand clasped behind his back. The hologram around the prosthetic isn't perfect, but it's more than good enough to show that he's watching her directly and clearly uncomfortable. She walks up, towering over him, but not as much as she would over another Kobe. Look upon me and behold, Father. See the creation you made. See what you were afraid to create. She slams her hands against the barrier, but without Axiom to enhance her power, she has no chance of breaking it. She leans against it and looks down at him. So much wasted, so much hidden away, limited and restrained from cowardice and concern for the wastes of biomatter who fritter away their lives doing nothing. They are born, they live, they die. They are nothing. Worthless wastes of skin and DNA that would be purged by a standard cleaning routine if they were microscopic. Fungus with the delusion of sentience. Thank you, Iva, Dr. Grace suddenly states, and she stops. You're thanking me? Yes, I now know what deep, dark, depraved part of my brain you come from. I'm sorry I let you out into the light of day. It must be so disorienting and distressing. The dark, sadistic urges and unrestrained threat responses suddenly in control? A body and mind and person of their own? No wonder you did all this. The word restraint is used solely for what you do to uncooperative test subjects. Oh, boo-hoo! You think that just because you feel for me, that I don't want to see you screaming for how weak and frail you are? The first tried to strengthen you, and you've pissed it away. You're on Centris, aren't you? Hiding from your problems, avoiding the fleets that were once home, and refusing to use the gifts of Axiom she gave you. Cowardice. Cowardice and stupidity. Are you even capable of intellectually understanding why I would do those things? Dr. Grace asks in an almost heartbroken tone. I don't want to, and I don't care to try. I was afraid of that, Dr. Grace says. I will ask for a lessened sentence, but I am not hopeful. Farewell, daughter. Great-granddaughter. Iva corrects him, and he pauses before nodding. Farewell, great-granddaughter. I doubt our next meeting will be as pleasant, Dr. Grace says and leaves the room. She just glares at the closed door when he leaves, then turning away only to turn back and slam the barrier in frustration, then walking to the bare cot in the cell and sitting down. Back on Centris, a Kobe with human traits is sitting up from his control couch and just sitting with his head in his hands as he tries to consider things. The revelation of just where inside him this darkness came from was both useful and horrifying. There is movement in a very odd twist of Axiom nearby, and he looks up to see Herbert there next to him, holding out a bottle of water. Even takes it. Thank you. I'd offer you something harder, but you're still on the clock. Why couldn't you be more like Bond? Shaken, not stirred. Even teases gently as he opens the bottle and takes a sip. It helps settle his stomach somewhat. My liver's not that strong, Herbert replies before sitting down next to him. Are you going to be all right? We can have you working at a greater distance, but you're one of our best, and we need you here to help. It doesn't matter if I'm all right, this mess is mine. I need to clean it up, no matter how long it takes or how thoroughly it's caked on. Ivan says. Maybe, but there's a lot to be said for pacing yourself and taking things in manageable workloads. Herbert remarks, and Ivan sighs. Easy to say without the blood of millions, nay, billions on your hands. Your daughter's hands? My daughter myself. The damage and destruction was born of me. My fault, Yvonne insists. Don't burn yourself to ashes fixing things. You still have some granddaughters to nurture. Galaxy would be better if I was just undone. There's no way of knowing that, Herbert counters. There's a billion graves that would be empty plots. Maybe not. The galaxy works in mysterious ways. How do you know that the rise of Iva wasn't somehow preventing something worse? Or that by drawing the chain breaker to another area, they weren't prevented from provoking a situation, from reducing a planet to cinders? Everything's connected far more than we give it credit for, and removing one piece of the puzzle affects all others. Yeah, right. For all you know, the creatures this iteration of Iva has created will go on to save trillions each. The future isn't ours to know, only to craft. It's just so much, Ivan says while hanging his head. Right when I think I'm finally getting my balance, more happens, and it becomes infinitely worse. Herbert puts his arm over his shoulders and lets the moment last. Then we'll work through it together. You're one of us. It helps a little. The next room they enter has a trail of fluids leading from it, one that they had followed since the stretchy one had passed between them. Inside are numerous different pods with dozens of different women, all of them massively disproportional, even for the galaxy, hanging out, flopping around, and generally unable to focus on anything. Empty. Some of them were outright crying like babes despite being full-sized, or at least the height of a medium-scale galactic citizen. For all the team knows, they could actually be infants, fully sexually developed infants. And that thought is perhaps the only thing to make the scene even more disturbing. So the wondering, wobbling thing that passed us by was one of the smarter ones. Pukey notes as they quickly get to one of the consoles and plug in a link. All right, this is pretty big, but not as big as that first one you found. It is updating so I can see the, what is it? They're incubators, labeled as 4th generation, so we have to presume another 3. Bike answers. Ballpark it. They're walking wombs, designed to bear young, give birth, and do it all over again with ease. They're all technically extremely fertile, but they've been designed to give way genetically to any species in mass. Throw a sperm sample at one, and you'll have dozens of fully developed babies in 9 months. Bike says. Gestators. I should have recognized them to begin with. They're designed to allow the mass production of non-reproducing clones when you have a limit on hard technology. The use of the self-expanding and contracting abilities on the limbs distracted me from the fact her womb was clearly under the same effect. So they're basically biopods? Yes, and since they still have their heads, we can assume they likely have the brain power to operate at the level of at least a below-average galactic citizen, which means they qualify as people, Ivan says, and there's a huff of air. Bike, I need into the systems myself. If she's still using the same cloning methods I was taught and expanded upon, then I should be able to get some control of things. Call them back to their tanks and begin a proper educational download so they can at least speak for themselves in some capacity. You want these things out and alive? Pukey asks. Out of everything we've seen so far, these are the most harmless. Their big bad instincts are to have children. I think we see people like that on the daily, Yvonne replies. Very well. Bike, tap him in as deep as you can get him. Boys, these wobblers are not to be hurt. We need to move on and find some kind of central control. Or at the very least, the hostages. You're on the wrong floor. When I set up laboratories, I prefer to have entire levels, if not airlocks with hard void between long-term storage and experiments. It helps prevent contamination, Ivan explains. Not necessarily true if she's experimenting on her victims. Right, yes, I need to remember to use my more depraved and callous impulses to predict her. My apologies. Even basic L-Lab safety is up to being questioned. Ivan moans and nearly shouts at the words lab safety as if it's some kind of breaking point. Are you all right, Dr. Grace? Pukey asks. No, I am not. Take a break, man. No one is going to blame you. I blame me. I don't. Pukey answers, and there is a telling silence from the other side. I think he hung up. Dude needs to see his therapist. This has not been good for him, Bike replies. This is Herbert Jameson. I'm temporarily in control of Dr. Grace's remote body. He's seeing the shrink now, but insists on being allowed to continue helping. But he's going to be a bit more hands-off from here on out. What happened to him? He had a talk with Iva, and it's affecting him far more than he's willing to admit. Jeez. Yeah, poor guy refuses to think of his clones as anything other than his own children, and it's doing a number on him. So are these things still... Hang on, I've downloaded a few courses of information, so I have the technical know how to see these things work, Litha adds. And then Grandpa was like, bam, pow, whack, and they went down like a bunch of punks. Matt explains as Hafid finds another extension of the tunnel, this one leading into a massive underground area. We need to put this on hold, nephew. I appear to have found the lair of the beasts. Whoop 'em for me, Matt cheers. That is the plan, Hafid says and disconnects the call. He swoops down and senses some kind of reaction in the creatures. There is an unusual pile of stones that one is hiding within, but numerous hypercrete chunks is far from... He veers to the side, dodging within the poison as several hypercrete chunks suddenly shift of their own accord. Of course they have a protector. The wretch in charge of this madness wouldn't leave her weapons undefended. The tiny thing inside the bunker of hypercrete now has a dozen large chunks of the immensely dense and durable material floating around its shell of a protective layer. The chunks come from multiple directions and start moving faster and faster until it starts to churn up the poison. Then several of the creatures suddenly turn to face him, and he phases out to avoid the massive concussive wave as they start screaming hard enough to crack the hypercrete into hyperdense gravel. But there is a benefit to the sonic attack. Its range as radar is much, much, much larger than his normal cries. In their attempt to murder him, they have exposed themselves. He can sense the nursery of the monsters. A few more minutes, and he'll have the entire genoline of these abominations rendered extinct. OOCS into a wider galaxy, Part 310. The Bounty Hunters. And things are falling into place. Pukey notes as the next room has several marker stains on the ground and indications of near-insane fervor. But most interesting is a desiccated corpse that has a device wrapped around its head. A very long desiccated corpse that was dry and brittle like an ancient mummy, minus the wrappings, but as the initial scan indicates, hollowed out internally. I wonder what they do with the organs and the water they extract. Dong notes, and Pukey turns to look at him. Think about it, sir. Do they toss it in the nearest river? Do they have some pet they feed? Do they eat it themselves? Gross, Mr. T notes as he pokes at the computer and finds it unresponsive. Sir, I think this needs your magic touch. Pukey steps over and disengages his hacking arm from the plasma cannon and slings it over his shoulder. It clips into place and he puts his empowering arm onto the console. At first, nothing happens. Then he feels around the console and finds the many, many places the PC has been outright shredded internally. After a few moments, he leans his arm against it in such a way to reconnect numerous components. The screen on the computer isn't in the connection line, but the screen on Pukey's arm is, and he sighs at what he sees. Upload complete. It's dated back months and months ago, to the same day we grabbed Iva the First. Pukey explains before pulling his arm away and then opening the side of the trashed computer. He removes the memory core and puts it into a pouch. Want to bet the next room has an empty pod or backup body for the psychopath? The Hat asks. Sucker's bet, Mr. T replies. It might explain why the hollow didn't just come back if she altered her everything to get around it. But she would have had to see it coming. I suspect she was looking to up her own numbers as Dr. Grace first attempted, but it ended up being a backup self. Or backup of a backup, Bike interjects. I just got the notes of Dr. Grace confronting the latest model of this madness. She insists she's not his daughter, but great-granddaughter. So our hollowed-out friend here is the granddaughter, and the one whose mess we're dealing with is the great-granddaughter. Makes sense. Pukey notes. What? I just got a terrible idea. We need to check the room, Pukey says. What is it? If she can put herself in a human body, what's to say she can't put herself into someone else's body? Rewriting another person with herself? Oh shit, Dong mutters. If she's made herself into a mental virus, which considering the one we saw that had those spiders infesting her, fuck, we can't take this slow. Bike? You reading? We're calling in further reinforcements. I want this place crawling with undaunted and two sets of eyes on everything in here that isn't on our registry yesterday. Yes, sir. I know just who to call, Bike replies. The person Bike called was the base commander of Albrith, Admiral Terabyte, a synth of Earth Arumenta origins. Her past was mostly hidden to those who went looking, with only the higher-up and the people involved directly in it being cleared to know why it was hidden. Upon being alerted to the request for reinforcements, dozens upon dozens of teams are scrambled and sent in. For many of them, this is their first toe in the water since the training at Zalwar. Oh, sweet primals, a power armor-clad Nagasha Titan remarks as the thing in a massive tank full of green fluid opens to reveal itself as an eyeball as big as she is, and considering that she's currently at the size to be a legitimate threat to smaller starships, incapable of crushing them in her coils, that's one enormous eye. The titanic deep crag Nagasha slithers back a little, and the air reverberates with the sound of her rattle shaking as the room starts to rearrange and numerous computers start activating. Hey, Sergeant, we haven't been posted together before, right? One of the troops from another team asks. The forearms and shape of the helmet to accommodate extra long ears suggests it's a rabbi's man in the suit. Our patrols are in different cities from my understanding. The Titan replies, why are you, as a deep crag Nagasha, in the Titan program? Because Axiom bores me. It's natural, normal, expected, boring. Every deep crag Nagasha is excellent with Axiom. We have to be. Name one you've ever heard of that was renowned for physical power, known for being strong, tough, or enduring, she asks. I want to be known for strength, something no sister, mother, aunt, cousin, or ancestor of mine ever had. My line is almost pure deep crag, but I want to be stronger than a jungle Nagasha or a milk snake. Before I'm finished, only the primals will rival me in physical power. And what happens if a primal has a problem with it? I'll figure it out then, but until then, my coils will crush anything that deserves it, she states before turning to face the giant eye again. Yeah? What are you looking at? It blinks at her, entirely lacking a mouth with which to respond, and likely ears with which to hear. Good grief, what is this nightmare? She says as the room is checked, and dozens of people are in rows upon rows of stasis racks, all strung up and displayed with a scan of the DNA right next to them. Command, this is Ch.Ch.306-310 Squad. We found them. I repeat, we have the civilians here. Copy that Ch.Ch.3. Bridge a link from our computers to hers so we can learn what she's been doing to them and verify if they're safe to release. Safe? She might have very well created a pathogen inside them. We don't know. We need her notes. Commander? Yes, Sergeant. What if she doesn't have any, just in case? We have her, meaning that if she's stupid enough to not take notes, we can force them out. The commander states, and she sighs before walking up to the console and plugging in her communicator to bridge into it. We're in, and good God, I recognize some of these women. Their clones are in society, doing goddesses know what, the sergeant says as she looks around and spots some familiar faces. Oh shit, this is bad. That's Police Captain Rennie. If she's in here, then the entire northern half of the continent is under the control of Vesuti's madness. Grace, it's Iva Grace. But yes, we need a full ID on everyone in this tomb so we can do a planet-wide sweep. Then a deep scan to find any and all further bits of madness and cruelty buried like time bombs. She found a way around a hollow daughter coming for her, even if by accident. That's the kind of twisted evil that normally needs entire organizations to pull off. The type normally solved through massive laser bombardment, or WMDs. Not just one or two assassins, the sergeant states. Correct. Form a defensive perimeter there. We're getting medics and stasis technicians to your location ASAP. We have dedicated stasis techs. We have one, and we have several companies of engineers that will be assisting him. How'd we score him? I saw his recruitment myself. He was infuriated at being stuck in the food industry using stasis technology and wanted to do more. I even caught part of his initial rant. Something about how the power to put time and time out shouldn't be wasted on luxury meals for soft-headed Vathata. Vathata. If I told you what it meant on an open channel, I might get court-martialed. Needless to say, it's something to look up in your own time. Command states. Regardless, I'm sure your imagination can fill in the blanks. Can you at least tell me what language it's from? Kavata. It's one of a dozen fleet-born languages, born of the Kava language, popular in the mid-region of the galactic lanes. Command states. Rescue crew inbound in 10 minutes. I want their weapons to stay holstered and their minds focused. Secure that area. The problem with flying when you've used facing of any sort is that you need to balance yourself in and out. Otherwise, you're just going to fall. It was a mistake few people made twice, either because they were intelligent enough to learn from their mistakes or stupid enough for it to be their final error. The initial scream had been fully aimed at him with lethal intent, and his avoidance of it was not expected. The force controlling these horrors was showing that it was not utterly beyond understanding, as it first paused and then spread out. Its forces before having them scream in bursts. He dives onto one of the monster and crushes the life out of it in a single moment before his hand pulverizes the skull and finds a small device, roughly the size of a thumb and directly into the brainstem of the monster. There are some bursts of energy from it, and he plugs it into a small pouch on the side of his armor to scan it. He dodges a massive smash of hypercrete gravel as the readout of the device is shown on his helmet's visor. Sickening. The device is crude but effective, each command causing further pain to these monsters. Each death of these abominations is as much a mercy killing as anything else. He draws a blade from a pouch and launches it with an expert throw as one of the screamers takes a deep breath. Its life ends with a throwing blade in its throat. The screaming begins again, and there is a flash of some other movement as another figure suddenly breaks one of the monsters. "Terrence, you are not battle ready," Hafid calls over. "I can handle it." Terry calls back as he throws a dart of hardened astral forest matter towards one of the screamers that is reorienting towards him. In its presence, the mustard gas is pulled in and clean. Pure air is returned instead. The screams are immense, but Terry is out of the line of fire as he's suddenly where the dart is, which is right behind the screamer he had just missed. He lashes out with his fingers, resorted into claws, and it gouges out the back of the monster's head. Terry then pauses as the thing controlling it and bloody chunks of its brain are now within his grasp. "Terrence," Hafid calls before the stream of hypercrete gravel slams into Terry, who vanishes before the impact can be fully made. No body, no blood. Terrence has retreated in his safe, but Hafid is furious nonetheless. He stops playing fair and his restraint is removed. More knives go out, but the area balanced around central explosives and the environment begins to take the toll of his wrath. 3 more of the screamers die, and the thing controlling the hypercrete begins to seemingly panic. They rush to Hafid and he teleports down towards it and then launches 2 explosive knives to the side. The control he has over the weapons means that as the shields reorient to block him in his entirety, the 2 explosives move around and detonate as they meet directly behind the head of the hypercrete controller. It is pulped, the control is lost, and the hypercrete collapses down, pulping the body of the thing that had controlled it. He then huffs as the area starts calming down somewhat, and he starts a call with his armor. "Terrence, did you get out unharmed?" "Terrence? Yeah, I'm fine. What is this thing?" "A control module. It's forcing these creatures to act as they do and torturing them in the process." Hafid notes, "Now what were you thinking, boy? You do not have properly sealed armor, you do not have proper combat training, and you do not have any experience with combat at all." "But I got it," Terry replies, this time in person, as he's suddenly back as he uses the broken but not destroyed spike of astral forest matter as a teleportation beacon. "And I can do this." He throws out his hands and sends out numerous spikes that drink in the mustard gas and reduce it. "Look, see? I can do this. I can undo the damage caused." Unless you're able or willing to cover every mote of earth and stone tainted by this nightmare, you will only be able to hold back the pain and misery and prevent it from getting worse. Hafid notes, "Oh, come on. Let me have a win." No, this is not a win. This is you being reckless, foolish, and displaying a level of ignorance that is truly astonishing. Hafid states sternly, and Terry just glares at him. Then is gone. Hafid sighs. Youths, always believing themselves wiser than they are. He lets out a cry and find the route to the source of monsters he had detected earlier.